I want to, because this is going to be our last PC Mastermind for a couple of weeks. Because, well, not two, for 2 weeks, right? We won't have one next week, but we'll have one the following week, due to the holiday. So I want to make sure everybody has something to work on, because there won't be any group coachings for the next 2 Mondays. And that doesn't mean we're not still working and being accountable to our business, right? I want to have a discussion today about databases and the value and benefit of them, and also some habits. I might have shared with some of you, I've been reading a little book called Atomic Habits. Anybody read this? If you have not read this, I am not a book pusher. There's a lot of people that talk about books and, want you to read every book under the sun. I'm not a book pusher. I'm going to push this book. This book is amazing. I have been listening to it every time I get in the car, and I finished it yesterday. It's so good. I will be listening to it again. And I have implemented this much of what I'm learning, and I've already seen a huge difference in my business and in my personal life. So massive. And we're going to do some coaching around it as well, too. So I am going to talk about one thing in here today. But before we get into that, is there anything on your mind that you want to mastermind around that's going to help you move your business forward over these next couple of weeks?
I have a question, Jodi.
Okay.
I feel like with Command, it is such a valuable tool with real estate and just working for you.
Mm.
And I know that I've been listening to some of the Scott Lewis marketing training courses and myself going in, and I'm having issues. And I know they're available to call and they can help walk you through some stuff. But I'm just kind of curious. I just feel like it's a valuable area that we don't really discuss that much about building your business and it working for you. And but also the system itself has errors and problems. So just kind of wanted to get a little bit of your own feedback. Like I was doing some test emails and, I noticed some stuff goes to junk opposed to your actual audience where you want it to go to. And maybe this isn't even a mastermind question, but it's just something that's on my mind that literally came off of a phone call doing that. And so it's just on my mind. If we're talking about holiday season, everyone being on vacation and something that's still working for you, I feel like Command is it for sure.
Yeah. And so as far as, how to do Command, that's not what the mastermind is for.
Yeah.
And we will address that a little bit though, Michelle, because that's going to feed into our database discussion, right? And we're actually next week when we're dark, the coaches and I are actually have some pretty lengthy meetings scheduled to work on some curriculums for the foundation and the momentum coaching, and things that we'll bring to mastermind and whatnot. That's going to help around the database, which is going to include Command. Now, to be clear, we're never going to be your Command guru or your number one Command resource,
Right.
because we want, just like the video training system that we have for all of you, that system is designed with you guys in mind. It was actually designed sort of by you guys, maybe not each of you specifically, but what I mean by that is agents that we've coached over the years, right? And the questions that we have, and how do we get into business quickly, and how do we fill in gaps of a business that we already have. And that's how it was designed. And we're actually doing revision number 3 that our intention is to release by January, to help even faster help people get into business, because we provide those resources for you as a value add-on, right? Because we want to then coach you to implement those resources, because we're here to help you build the business, right? There's so many places for you to get help. So let me start by saying, any help that you need for Command, the very best resource is Marty Miller. Okay.
Yeah.
In the PC toolkit are his 7.0 and 8.0 videos, which are the most up-to-date ones for anything you need to know to learn Command. You can also just go to YouTube and Google 66-day Command Challenge, Marty Miller, right? That's how we learn, by the way. So he is, most of you know, but for a couple brand new ones, he is a tech guru within Keller Williams. So he is the man when it comes to that. It's your absolute best resource. And his videos are all like 4 to 7 minutes long. So they tackle just like one little thing, and then you can practice it, right? You can do as many as you want at any given time, but they're designed to help you learn what you need to learn. And so you can look at the titles in the list as well. Okay. So the other thing that I will address, Michelle, you mentioned in testing emails, they don't always go to the intended target. Sometimes they go to spam. That's just natural. If a person's email has never received an email from a specific place before, a lot of times it's not command that's the problem. It's the person that you're sending it to's email is somehow decoding it as spam, and so sending it to the spam folder. So especially if you're putting somebody on a neighborhood nurture or something and you really want them to go there, part of your reach outs and your phone call should be, hey, by the way, I set you up on to get emails twice a month because I figured you'd really want to know what's going on in your neighborhood. You can unsubscribe if you don't wish to get them, but check your spam folder if you haven't been receiving those, right? So let them know that. That's a lot of people's email has blockers from something. That's what we say. That's what we found out too when we send things through command. Because when you send things through, it comes from you, right? But it comes from a command backend email address. So sometimes other people's email filters that.
Sure. No, great. Thank you.
Okay. Command is great. And like I said, we're going to be talking a lot about it. And we may even integrate some stuff today, not how to, excuse me, not necessarily teaching you how to use it, but talking about how you can use it in the best way. Excuse me. I had a tickle. Sorry about that. Okay. So we'll integrate more of that into our conversation today. Anything else specific? And remember, for a couple of you that are newer to this call, this isn't Ask a Coach. So where it's not like, how do I find this? How do I do this? Right. We do have Ask a Coach every weekday for an hour, and you can always email us and reach out. If it's a quick thing and we have time, we'll of course answer those questions. But this is really a conversation about helping you improve your business, gain business, move your business forward. Okay. So anything on your mind, any struggle that you may be having, that over the next couple of weeks, we could mastermind around to help you.
I've got one that's, I wondered what you thought about the optimal strategy for converting open house leads. I've had a couple of really good open houses and was able to capture, 20 plus contacts. But yeah, so it went really great. It was like the first weekend open for that property. So we got a ton of traffic, and I also door knocked around there. So a bunch of the neighbors came by. But yeah, it's always been a weak spot of mine, converting buyer leads long term. And there were a couple really good ones in there. So I just wanted to throw that out there and see about open house conversion.
Okay. And open house conversion would have maybe a little bit more of a specific conversation, if you will, because of where you met them, right? And this would apply to any type of conversion leads, just flipping the script, so to speak, right? But the number one key is to call them and thank them for attending, right? And then ask them if they had any questions about the house. It's they may not. That's not the point. The point is just to have a reason to call, right? Leave them a message, follow that up with a text, right? Because people respond to text messages where they don't respond all the time to phone calls and voicemails. That doesn't mean don't make the call, right? It just means if you want them to interact and they didn't answer the phone, follow it up with a text. But really, it's just as simple as, thank you so much for attending the open house. It was so nice to meet you. I just wanted to follow up and see if you had any questions about the house, or if I could help you find a different house, right? Because a lot of times people don't call the agent back because they're not interested in that house. So we have to make it clear that we can help them with any house, right? And so I think that's sometimes where people get stuck, is they don't make it clear that they can help them with any house.
Yeah, that was my struggle, is shifting from we're not interested in this property to, I can help you find any property. So I pretty much did that exact thing. I called them all and said, thanks for coming by. Do you have any questions? And a couple of them are unrepresented. And one of them has a fairly substantial place to sell, and then is just going to buy cash here, hopefully fairly soon. So I just am not sure how to space out those follow-up calls, because I did contact them initially, but I don't really want to ride that line between being kind of overbearing. And I've had people react pretty negatively to like repeated calls from open houses. So, I mean, is it just a numbers game, or the ones they're just going to react like that if they're going to react like that? And I should just kind of weekly or.
Yeah, I would follow up regularly. There's also, excuse me, in Command, there is a smart plan for open house follow-up. And it's one of the main ones that Keller Williams had designed from the beginning, that you can attach to all of those leads, right? Now, before you ever attach a smart plan that somebody else created, Keller Williams or somebody else within the company, make sure that you look at it, right? Make sure that there isn't some type of verbiage you don't need to switch based on the circumstances. But for the most part, it should be ready to go. Just make sure to do any needed edits first. And then they're there for you. So that's super easy. I would attach that to all of them, right? And so it's going to periodically be emailing them, texting them, remind you to call. Here's the thing. When somebody raises their hand to say, I'm interested in real estate one way or another, right? They did a sign call, they came into the open house, they clicked on an internet lead, it doesn't matter where. They've expressed interest. So the rule of thumb is you keep calling, texting, reaching out until you either make them a client and close business, right? Or they tell you to stop.
Okay.
Okay. Because there's a thing that we used to talk about a lot. We don't talk about it as much. It's called 21 days of pain. I like to call it 21 days of gain, because, no pain, no gain, right? It's painful to follow up. If you think about following up with somebody for 3 solid weeks every day, so say 5 days a week for 3 weeks, right? 21 days. And you're going to change it up. One day it may be a phone call, then a text, an email, and change it up through the process, right? If you stop at 1, 2, or 3 times, you're probably going to lose that lead. Most agents will follow up the first time. And then when they don't get a response, or they don't get a text message back or anything, they give up. They think, oh, I don't want to bug them. They gave you their number. In an open house setting, they came into the open house. They most likely have an interest in doing a real estate transaction, right? Mm-hmm. So maybe you just called them at an inadvertent time. Have you ever not answered the phone because you couldn't talk? And then forgot? Maybe you even intended to call the person back, and a week later you went, oh my goodness, I totally forgot. We've all done that, right? So don't ever think that we're bugging. They gave you their information, use it, right? So there's a segment of people that will follow up maybe twice, and even less that'll follow up a third time. But really only about 10 or 12% of people will follow up enough times to actually get the lead. Have I shared that photo with you guys before about the leads and follow up? I think this is something that's really important and can actually help your mindset. I'm going to Google it because it's going to be faster. This right here, sales statistics. 48% of people never follow up. So have you ever, and you don't have to answer this out loud, but have you ever been guilty of doing an open house and never following up? You were going to do it, things got in the way, 2 weeks goes by and you realize, oh man, it's too late now. Oh, well, better luck next time. That happens a lot. don't waste your time going through the motions of doing an open house if you're not going to follow up, right? And if something happens and you drop the ball, follow up when you remember. Okay, but put it in your calendar as a must-do item after the open house. 25% of salespeople make a second contact and stop. 12% of salespeople only make 3 contacts and stop. Only 10% make more than 3. But now look at where the success comes in. 2% of sales are made on the first contact. So you could say 2% of your real estate appointments are made the first time you talk to somebody, right? 3% on the second contact, 5% on the third, 10% on the fourth, 80% on the 5th to the 12th. So how many people are actually following through that many times? Right? And in real estate, it's really about the 8th to the 15th is what we have seen. So that's even a little bit more, right? That falls in within that 21 days. So did you know that 87%, it's 84 or 87%, it's a lot, percent of all real estate business is done by, or 87% of real estate business that's done in the nation is done by 11% of the agents?
Mhm. I bet that's absolutely true.
Doesn't that fall in line with the statistics we just went over? So why is it that only 11% of all real estate agents have most of the business?
They're continually chewing through that database.
Yes.
Mhm.
They're being intentional about their follow-up. They're being intentional about their SOI. They're being purposeful, right? And so it's interesting because that goes right in line with one of the things that I wanted to share today. So in this book, in chapter 19, when I was listening to it, I thought I have to share this with you guys because building habits can be difficult, right? And a good way to build a new habit is to start small, do it consistently, and grow it over time. But here's an interesting statistic. Once a habit, let's see, when you're starting a new habit, it's important to keep the behavior as easy as possible so you can stick with it even when conditions aren't perfect, okay? Once a habit's been established, however, it's important to continue to advance in small ways. These little improvements and new challenges keep you engaged. Okay. I'm going to skip to where he asked a top baseball coach about his habits. I'm trying to get just to the main point here. So he says his answer surprised me because it's a different way of thinking. The question was specifically, what's the difference between the best athletes and everyone else? What do the really successful people do that most don't? Now, you can take the word athlete out and put in realtor, right? This applies to anything. His answer surprised me because it's a different way of thinking about work ethic. People talk about getting amped up to work on their goals, whether it's a business or sports or art. You hear people say things like it all comes down to passion, or you've really got to want it. As a result, many of us get depressed when we lose focus or motivation because we think successful people have some bottomless reserve of passion. But this coach was saying that really successful people feel the same lack of motivation as everyone else. The difference is that they still find a way to show up despite the feelings of boredom. Mastery requires practice, but the more you practice something, the more routine it becomes. Once the beginner gains have been made and we learn what to expect, our interest starts to fade. Sometimes it happens even faster than that. All you have to do is hit the gym a few days in a row or publish a couple of blog posts on time, and letting one day slip doesn't feel like much. Things are going well. It's easy to rationalize taking a day off because you're in a good place. The greatest threat to success is not failure, but boredom. We get bored with habits because they stop delighting us. Perhaps this is why we get caught up in a never-ending cycle, jumping from one workout to the next, one diet to the next, one business idea to the next. As soon as we experience the slightest dip in motivation, we begin seeking a new strategy, even if the old one was still working. Sound familiar? Right? Perhaps that's why many of the most habit-forming products provide continuous forms of novelty. Well, anyway, that's as far as what we're talking about. That's starting to get off the subject. But the point is, in his chapter summary, the greatest threat to success is not failure, but boredom. It's boring to do lead generation for 2 or 3 hours every day. It can be very boring, but it's also very necessary if we want business, right? So as habits become routine, they become less interesting and less satisfying. We get bored. Anyone can work hard when they feel motivated. It's the ability to keep going when work isn't exciting that makes the difference. Now get this one. Professionals stick to the schedule. Amateurs let life get in the way. That one sentence is powerful. Professionals do the work. Professional realtors lead generate every single day. Amateurs don't, because it's too hard. It's too boring.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. The novelty aspect wearing off, it tracks pretty well because I'll have spurts of high productivity and then the novelty wears off and then it wanes. So, yeah.
But remember, Gary Keller said in the Shift book, he was quoted as time on task over time. When Gary Keller started in this business, he didn't know what he was doing. And look what he built, right? But it's because he didn't give up. He didn't know what lead generation was. He realized that it had to be done regularly, consistently, right? If we don't do it consistently, we're not going to have a business. And that's just the cold hard truth. Now, this kind of leads back to what Michelle was was asking about when it comes to command, right? And our database. I'm going to ask each one of you and put it in the chat if you will. How many contacts do you currently have in your database? What else? 338, 600-ish. Okay. I like that. Ishes are fine for this conversation. 2502. Nice. And if you don't have that many, if you're newer, don't be discouraged. There's a reason I'm asking this. Okay. We can always add to it. Anyone else gonna put something in there? Here's the thing. You all have a calculator handy? Some of you might have done this with me before. Get out a calculator and take the number of your database, how many people you have in it, and multiply it by 0.065. What number did you come up with?
57 for me.
57? Okay.
22.
22? Okay. Now, that number that you just came up with, multiply that by your average commission, the average gross commission income for your area. If you don't know what that is, I can help you.
What's the average in Tulare County?
Probably 8,000 to 9,000.
Okay.
It's climbing. 9,000 is probably a pretty safe number. Okay. What'd you get, Sebastian?
187,000.
Okay. What'd you get, Daniel?
455,000.
Nice. What'd you get, Michelle?
I'm at, if I'm doing an average commission that's accurate, 20,000 is what I'm saying on average for us. I'm at 780.
Nice.
Yeah, which is a good income.
Yeah. Now, does that happen simply because you have that number of people in your database?
Nope.
We got to do something with it, right? So here's the thing. Those numbers can become a reality if you do the work. On average, statistically speaking, 6.5% of our database will give us a commission opportunity every single year. And I say commission opportunity because it isn't necessarily the people in our database that are going to do business. Some of them will, but some of them will refer you to somebody they know that's going to do business, right? But how are they going to refer you if you're not reaching out to them and reminding them you're in the business? So we are going to be really, over these next several weeks, helping you focus on your database, right? So I have an assignment for all of you over this between now and our next mastermind. That's a good couple of weeks. I want you to figure out how many people in your database are missing a phone number. How many people in your database are missing an email address? How many of your contacts are missing a mailing address or a physical address? Because if you don't have all of those pieces of information for every contact, you are missing massive opportunities. And you're not going to get to that 6.5% in commission opportunities. Then on top of that, we've got to tag our database. We've got to add smart plans to our database. We're going to be working on that with you guys over time. If you want to get a head start before we our next mastermind and next workshops on that, then go to the Marty Miller videos and watch the ones on tagging, watch the ones on smart plans. Okay. There's magic in those neighborhood nurture smart plans. The bi-monthly one is 26 touches a year without you doing anything but clicking a couple buttons. But if you just simply put a name and one piece of information and don't actually do anything, you're not going to get to that 6.5%. And 6.5% seems like a small amount, but with the numbers that you all are coming up with, that's a lot, right? So think about how much money do you want to make in a year? Is your database big enough to support that? And if it's not, then we need to figure out how we add more people to our database, right? Thoughts, questions, comments?
Jody, I have a question.
Okay.
If 6.5% of our database gives us a commission opportunity, and we obviously need the home address, phone number, email, because we're going to be, tagging them or touching them in different ways. How long before you can get that full amount opportunity?
Consistency for about 1 to 2 years. So here's where agents drop the ball, right? They get excited, they put people in their database, they start things, they do lead generation for a little while, they call all their SOI, they go through it maybe once, and then it's like, well, I've already called everybody. Now what do I do? Well, did the quarterly call plan tell you to call them again? Call them again, right? How many are actually calling or attempting to call, right? If they don't answer the phone, that's not on you. But how many of you are calling everyone you know 4 times a year at least? And if you're not going to have 6.5%.
So it's the 4 times a year plus all the other smart plan stuff, right?
Yes, you need a minimum of 36 touches a year. I would argue you need more than that. That is the bare minimum to get to that 6.5%. But again, it's not just having names in your database, it's having people in there with all pieces of contact information, having them tagged, having them set up. For instance, let's just take February, what is the Super Bowl season, right? So if you know that a certain segment of your SOI loves football, you should have a football tag on everybody that loves football. So a week or two before the Super Bowl comes, you should find an article online about tailgating or appetizers for a football party or whatever you want to do, right? And send that to, you can filter your database by the football tag and send that to everybody. Right? So think of ways, what happens throughout the year where you can tag your database: football, baseball, basketball, NASCAR, shopping, Amazon. I don't know. You can think of all kinds of things, right? Cat lover, dog lover, anything that you can think of, right? Food tips, recipes. Somebody loves to cook. It doesn't matter. What do they like? If you have people that have definite hobbies and passions, you should be tagging them with those. And then finding every month, put it in your business plan, put it on your calendar at the first of every month. Send spring cleaning tips in April, March, whatever, right? It's not about whether they use them or not. It's the fact that you thought of them. Baseball spring training is going to happen, right? So send that to your baseball lovers. You find a cute cat video online, send that to everybody in your database with cats, right? And you can do that through the email campaigns. You can do it through a one-time smart plan. You can set up a one-time smart plan so that you can send it out quickly to everybody. So make sure you're maximizing this, because the only way to get to that 6.5% is to really be connecting with your database. Because wouldn't you think it would be cool to get something that is specific to you versus just a whole bunch of random stuff all the time? Specific to your likes. So during this couple of weeks until we meet again, use the extra time that you're going to have. I know you guys probably have other, family things and things planned too. Please enjoy yourselves. But at the same time, use this extra time to be able to really look at your database. Do a database audit. How good is your database really? Because you could have 2,500 contacts in there, but if 200 of them are all that has information, that's not going to get you to 6.5%. We got to be realistic, and we got to be willing to do the work, even the boring work. Because remember, professionals stick to it, whether they're bored or not. Is that helpful? Okay. What other questions, thoughts, comments do you have? We have a little bit of time left here.
I think it's great what you're saying. And just to throw out there, personally, I was very afraid of entering people into the database because I was like, one, I don't want Keller Williams having any influence on those people. And so I was like, oh, keep my names to myself kind of thing. And it took some time to do the easy transfer from the phone into the database. And I finally am like, okay, just do it. And anyway, I think the value, my number, when I say 600-ish, I downloaded all my contacts and I'm going back through it because I do share my phone with my husband. And I'm trying to go from 600 much lower because I'd rather have a database that's stronger, and at the same time recognizing that the people that are in there, it's not even necessarily them that I'm so worried about. It's the referrals and things that you may not even think of, like, oh, I don't want to interfere with that person with real estate, but it may not, just that they know you're an agent, that could be a conversation to another lead. And so I would just encourage everyone, throw them all in there, work with them, tag them, however it works for you. But there's definitely value in getting Command up and running in that system. And it's a challenge. I know it's a new system, and there's quirks in it, and it makes it a little challenging, but to just push through, that there's so much value in it.
There is a lot of value, and most of the kinks have been worked out. Any piece of technology. I mean, Google even messes up on us once in a while. Okay, so every piece of technology is going to have a hiccup now and then, but we don't let that stop us from doing things. But I do want to put your mind at ease. I have 2 comments about that, Michelle. I want to put your mind at ease, all of your mind at ease. First of all, Keller Williams does not keep or use any information that is put into Command. They are not going to use that information and reach out to anyone. That information belongs to you and you alone. So like as in leadership, I have access to be able to look at people's Command to a degree. I can go in and I can see how many contacts are in each of your commands, but that's all I can see. I can see if you have 232, right? I cannot see your contacts. No one can see your contacts. Okay. So that's not something you have to worry about. There are a lot of companies out there, though, that once you put your information in there, if you ever leave, you can take your contacts because they're yours, but they also keep them. And now they're going to start marketing to them. Keller Williams does not do that, never has done that, and never will do that. So I want to just, if anybody had that concern, I want to squelch that quickly. The other thing that I would say is you have a unique situation, Michelle. If you and your husband share a phone, and so some of those contacts might be his and not yours, you can say, hey, you know what? I'm starting a new real estate business, and I put all my contacts from my phone in, and I realized that some of them are my hubby's. You know, think of something you could say to them, like, I just want to make sure I don't recognize your name. How do I know you? Right? Make up something to say based on trying to differentiate, right? So now you're even telling those contacts that you're in real estate, and maybe they want to be on a neighborhood nurture because they want to know how much their house is worth or what's going on in their neighborhood. And that's the simplest one, right? Everybody wants to know what's going on in their neighborhood. There isn't anyone that doesn't want that. Almost no one will unsubscribe from that. Some will, but really very low amount of people will unsubscribe from those types of emails.
Yeah. My tag is spouse B. Those are people I'm just putting aside.
Cool. Well, but don't take them out. Just tag them.
No. Yeah, that's exactly.
Yeah, because
that's exactly.
who knows? Something may come up that'll be perfect to send to spouse B tags, right? And maybe not, but they're there in case that happens.
Absolutely. No, thank you.
You could also remarket to those emails through the Facebook advertising. So not having them in there, but not calling them and using them just to retarget the email is another way to go too.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
With what Jodi said too, something nice to say. Yeah. And some of that I have to be careful. I know there's other people as well that know people in the movie industry, and that's his industry. So I have to be somewhat careful of who I'm sending out emails to along those notes. But yeah, so that'll take a little more time going through that side of things. But anyway, I appreciate everything. Thank you.
You're welcome. And that's okay. Everybody probably has a segment of people for one reason or another that may not be appropriate. But it doesn't mean that we should. So like, you can still have them in there, but have them tagged in such a way that you're not attaching certain things to those people, right? But what you can do is now you can look up spouse B, right? And go through that list and look at your Facebook. Is this person, would it be appropriate for me to be friends with this person on Facebook? Oh yeah, I know them. I know them through my husband. They know me, but hey, let's be friends on Facebook, right? Now, when you make Facebook posts, you may never talk to them, but they're seeing that you're in real estate. They connect you to your husband, that relationship, and then they may call you, right? So there's a lot of ways around things that you can do to still be able to prospect to people indirectly. All right, everyone. Well,
Thank you,
enjoy
Jodi.
your extra time off from things next week, but that doesn't mean you're not working if it was in your plan to be working, right? Just
Mhm.
have extra time to do some more lead generation next week or database cleanup. All right. Have a good one, everyone. Reach out
Thank
if you
you.
need anything.
Thanks.
Thank you.